ProVision Mentorship is one of several strategic focuses of ProVision Solutions Inc. I'm Jim Ewing, and mentorship can make a difference. This is one of several interviews with those who've experienced mentorship. Learn from their experiences. Then take a moment and share your experiences on our blog, ProVision Mentorship.
I am a chartered accountant by trade. I don't practice accounting anymore, but I do go in and help small entrepreneurs who are just starting their business with CFO type of help. In addition to that, one of my favorite things that I love to do is be involved in an angel investing group where I also take care of all the deal intake and deal screening for that 135 member in 5 cities group of people. Well, first of all, I've been mentored. So the best experience I can offer is that I understand how important it is to be mentored and what a great valuable gift it is when someone actually mentors you through your career or through a stage of your career. In addition to that, I also really like to mentor, and specifically young entrepreneurs at this stage. So I would say that being open to mentorship and having people open to your mentorship is one of the biggest learnings that I've had in my time in business so far.
What type of help can a mentor provide?
The biggest help, I believe, is the level of objectivity they can provide. Different than a parent who, of course, wants their child to succeed and always will provide a lot of praise. I believe that a really good mentor will always be very honest and direct in their feedback and provide alternative ways of thinking about approach and or how to structure things that may not always align with the mentee in the first conversation, but gives the mentee something to think about on their own time and consider, and maybe actually pivot and change their view on how they were going to approach something that they might not have considered on their own.
Talk with us about the development of the mentorship relationship.
There's probably a couple different ways. The first way I would think of is a real formal request, or where a person would approach someone and say, I really admire your experience and wondering if you would help me. That's the first obvious way. But there's also some that naturally grow. Obviously, it could be through a work arrangement, a boss to an employee. Could be a mentor-mentee relationship, not always, but it could turn into that. Or just somebody else at a place of business that the mentee may interact with on a regular basis, that they feel they could learn something different than what they're learning in their current role.
Is it possible for a mentorship relationship to be mutually beneficial?
I would think mutually beneficial relationships always end up better, just in any type of relationship. So I would think that it would add to the same mentality for this. As a mentor, I know I've greatly evolved my approach with people because I've learned how to deal with different personalities, different ways of giving feedback. It's given me many opportunities to practice giving feedback and again, get feedback from the mentee on how well I did in giving the feedback. So if you are someone who cares a lot about how you deliver and the receptiveness of the other side of the party, soliciting their feedback, a two-way street of feedback is a really opportunistic but beneficial opportunity for both parties. Obviously for the mentee, the benefits for them would be around growth and development, opening their eyes and opportunities for new ways of thinking and doing things.
Have you got some tips for both the protege and the mentor?
Absolutely. Acknowledgement of gratitude goes a long way. So when I see a mentee who doesn't do that level of acknowledgement, This relationship is usually a volunteer relationship, so it's important that the mentor feels like they are actually adding value for the mentee. And the only way they're going to know that is if the mentee acknowledges it. And there's some, I guess you could argue that some people may be able to observe that growth and development, but always, face-to-face interaction with feedback directly coming from the mentee goes a long way. I think it's important that there is a two-way set of reaching out to each other to initiate the meetings or conversations. It shouldn't always be the mentee asking for help. I think the value comes from the mentor actually saying, I think this is a good opportunity for me to help you. Do you have time? Another really important point is when you're providing feedback to the mentee, again, asking, are you ready to get some feedback? Because I'd like to give you some. To make sure they're in the right headspace. People won't be as receptive in actuality as they are open in their mind to it. So some days I don't want to get feedback from a mentor. I just am not in the right headspace to receive it. So it's always a good opportunity to ask in advance and make sure that the person who you want to give the feedback to is ready. I think my main tip and the primary one I would always use is actually to sit down and have a conversation once in a while and do a report card, so to speak, on how the relationship is developing and the value to both participants. If it's really great for the mentee but not so much fun for the mentor, and that can happen, it's not a good mutually beneficial relationship. So that discussion scorecard, if you want to call it that, on a few criteria that are important to both parties and make sure that criteria is being met. It's also a good opportunity to provide the mentee an opportunity to have a often difficult conversation around giving feedback, because a lot of times the mentee isn't used to giving feedback, and having that conversation about, is this working for you? And if it isn't, let's talk about why and what we should do next. Should we continue the relationship, or maybe it's time for a change in the relationship? And I would say the same thing at the end. I mean, the relationship can get to a point where it's not as productive anymore. And it doesn't mean you break your ties forever, it just means you change the ties.
What final thoughts would you share with those considering entering into a mentorship relationship?
Well, from a mentor perspective, I would very much consider what I would say is the level and the amount of interaction that's going to be required in the relationship. For myself personally, what I don't want is somebody calling me and texting me every time they need to make a decision. So I'm looking for someone who can learn the skills that they need to be a good communicator back with me, which includes, accumulating all your questions and saving them for when we are going to agree and sit down together, and not expecting me to be responsive to a text that may come every time you're having a difficult time making a decision. So the point of this relationship is to also help teach independent thinking and independent behavior. From the mentee perspective, I think accessibility becomes very critical. There's a lot of times where the mentor is, someone you really aspire or admire, and you want to be able to have that interaction with those people, but if they don't have time in their schedule, the mentee's going to get very frustrated and feel that they're being ignored. That's not good for a relationship. It's not good to foster a future relationship either.
Now it's your turn to share your experience with mentorship. Visit our blog, Provision Mentorship. Make the investment in mentorship today for your success tomorrow.